In July 2020, Trump signed an order initiating a withdrawal of the United States from the WHO, which has been criticized for its ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Now, days after taking office, the Biden administration reversed the withdrawal order. So let me ask you this. How do you go from withdrawing from the WHO in 2020 to the Biden administration now negotiating a global pandemic treaty that would give the WHO authority over the freedom of American citizens? And all of this is happening while a new threat from the monkeypox virus, which has been around for the past 50 years, has conveniently begun to almost spontaneously spread across the world. Okay, my friends, let's take a closer look together.
Americans should expect to see more reported cases of monkeypox in the weeks ahead.
Now to the global outbreak of monkeypox. As more cases are reported here in the U.S., the CDC announced that the government will release some vaccines from the national stockpile, but only for a small number of people.
Monkeypox has now been detected in 3 more countries, bringing the total to 15, as scientists say they are still unsure what is causing the outbreak.
The monkeypox, 2 new suspected cases now under investigation in Utah, potentially 2 cases in Florida, after a confirmed case in Massachusetts and that suspected case here in New York City.
While experts around the world are working hard to figure out the origin of the monkeypox virus spreading wildly, some astonishing facts have emerged about a master plan to intentionally spread this disease. To unfold this master plan, let's rewind back to November 2021, when Bill Gates was being interviewed by Sky News. He said, "It will take probably about $1 billion a year for a pandemic task force at the WHO level, which is doing the surveillance and actually doing what I call germ games, where you practice. You say, okay, what if a bioterrorist brought smallpox to 10 airports? You know, how would the world respond to that?" Now, if you look at the word smallpox used by Gates in the interview, it was intentionally used at that time to give birth to a new form of discussion on a smallpox vaccine that could also treat monkeypox. As the US federal government has around only 1,000 doses to treat monkeypox patients, the era of pandemics seems to be a perfect opportunity for the billionaire to tap into this market. Surprisingly, his plan started working because in the same month of November 2021, right after his interview, Precision Vaccinations, which is trusted for providing vaccine-related news to help people make efficient decisions, reported that the warning given by Gates has motivated smallpox vaccine discussion worldwide. Soon, the CDC, also in the same month of November 2021, jumped in with its advisory group on immunization practices by reviewing 2 presentations focused on the smallpox vaccine, Jynneos. In 2019, Bavarian Nordic, a vaccine manufacturing company, licensed a vaccine named Jynneos in the United States as a cure for smallpox and monkeypox. However, CDC still wanted to participate so that it can justify its actions in the future for stealing people's freedom, even if monkeypox poses a serious threat to public health or not. So in that presentation, the Nuclear Threat Initiative, NTI, and Munich Security Conference joined together to present a possible pandemic scenario of how monkeypox spread across the world could look like in the next 18 months. NTI reported that by the end of 18 months, the fictional monkeypox pandemic that is resistant to vaccines could affect 3 billion people and kill 270 million people worldwide. Now, the most astonishing part is during that presentation, they predicted that during mid-May of 2022, monkeypox will start emerging into the world, which is exactly what is happening right now. NTI further predicted on page 12 of the presentation that in May 2022, the initial outbreak will infect 1,421 people and kill 4 people. By January 2023, it would spread to 83 countries, infecting 70 million and kill 1.3 million people. Then by December 2023, the virus will infect 3.2 billion people and kill 271 million. Then it will be revealed that a civilian biolab had been the origin of the outbreak. So if these predictions were fictional in nature, then why are the monkeypox cases suddenly emerging in the same month they had predicted earlier? To add more proof to this investigation, the same type of presentation was also conducted before COVID-19 came into picture, and the usual suspects who participated in it are the same individuals participating in monkeypox presentation. Furthermore, the World Economic Forum and the controversial Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation also participated in it. The same was confirmed by the New York Magazine report of February 2020, which said, 2 months before the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 emerged in central China, a group of public health experts gathered in New York City for a simulation. The characteristics of the virus currently causing global havoc are remarkably similar to the one proposed in the simulation dubbed Event 201. Now, according to the World Health Organization, the first case of monkeypox was identified in 1970 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. Since then, 2 variants of monkeypox came into the picture. One from DRC, which has a fatality rate of 10%, and the other one from West Africa with a fatality rate of less than 1%. Thankfully, the current cases in Europe and United States are of the West African variant with 1% fatality rate. However, in 2020, WHO also reported 4,600 suspected cases of monkeypox in the DRC with a fatality rate of 3.7% that killed around 171 people, which shows the sudden rise of the variant in recent years. As the officials have confirmed 200 cases of monkeypox worldwide, the public health authorities are raising an alarm we must not ignore. The experts are claiming that monkeypox, which emerged from the same family as smallpox, can be transferred not only from monkeys, but also from wild animals. Earlier, it used to infect people who recently traveled to Africa, but this time most of the infected cases are emerging from people who had no history of traveling to Africa, thus hinting towards human-to-human transmission. According to the Massachusetts Department of Public Health, monkeypox was never known to spread easily between people like today because it required direct contact with bodily fluids, lesion fluids, and prolonged face-to-face contact with the infected person. However, after noticing an unusual outbreak of the virus, many experts are getting concerned about whether the virus's DNA components have changed or not. With respect to the origin of this virus, the leading theory about its sudden spread around the world is linked to the sexual transmission that occurred at events in Spain and Belgium. The conclusion was made by Dr. David Heyman, who chaired a meeting of the World Health Organization's advisory group on infectious disease. He said, "We know monkeypox can spread when there is close contact with the lesions of someone who is infected, and it looks like sexual contact has now amplified that transmission. It's very possible there was somebody who got infected, developed lesions, and then spread it to others when there was sexual or close physical contact. These international events seeded the outbreak around the world into the US and other European countries. Germany, on the other hand, also reported 4 confirmed cases linked to exposure at party events where sexual activity took place, in Spain's Canary Islands and in Berlin. According to the WHO officials, the virus itself is not a sexually transmitted infection, but a recent rise in cases is linked to homosexual men. Dr. Rosamund Lewis, who runs WHO smallpox research, said, "We have seen a few cases in Europe over the last 5 years, just in travelers, but this is the first time we are seeing cases across many countries at the same time in people who have not traveled to the endemic region in Africa." As President Biden is in complete favor of handing over world leadership to China's puppet, the WHO, he is now ensuring that the proposed amendments to the WHO powers at its 75th World Health Assembly in Geneva secretly gets accepted without opposition. To be more specific, the proposed amendments would give China-backed WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom power to declare a public health emergency in any nation he wants, using whatever evidence he considers sufficient, even if it's not an official statement from the government, dictate policies that the target country must follow to respond to the emergency, and if any country refuses to follow their directions, they can impose economic and other related sanctions on the targeted country. Now, if you look at the timing of the proposed amendments drafted by the US Department of Health and Human Services, they were handed over to the WHO officials in January without having any discussion with the federal officials until April of this year. Furthermore, the proposed amendments are also close to the controversial November 2021 meeting of the health officials, in which they laid down their estimated plan of how monkeypox should arise in the future. So if these amendments get accepted by the World Health Assembly, the decision-making body of the WHO, at the annual conference in Geneva this week, then sovereignty, as well as the economy of the world, could easily be controlled by the WHO. Now, not to forget, the Biden administration also proposed to give a massive $2.47 billion to the CDC, especially for enhancements to domestic sentinel surveillance programs, investments in global genomic surveillance approaches, and other systems. Now, in other words, we could begin to see systems similar to what already exists in communist China. For example, respiratory surveillance platforms that include video cameras and recorders that alert authorities when members of the public are seen coughing or otherwise acting in manner that could indicate the presence of an infectious disease or help spread one already present in a population. This means complete dominance on the freedom of movement of every US citizen, which is even beyond what was predicted in George Orwell's 1984 novel. The same pandemic surveillance mechanism was also heavily pushed by guess who? Bill Gates in 2015, in which he openly claimed that the WHO should regulate this mechanism. Also, Bill Gates and his father had deep connections with the Rockefeller family, one of the wealthiest families in the world that also supports having a global surveillance mechanism. However, with all these disturbing actions, the freedom of citizens can still be protected. The House Freedom Caucus, an assembly of the lower chamber's most reliable conservative members, have heavily objected to Biden's latest actions to sell the sovereignty of the country. The letter written by the members on May 23rd to Biden demanded, halt your efforts to empower WHO and instead either immediately resume President Trump's withdrawal from the body or at the very least push serious reforms to aggressively correct the organization's rampant corruption and ineffectual leadership. As Tedros was recently reappointed to a second 5-year term as Director General of the WHO without facing an opposition candidate, which is the same style of election that is usually witnessed in communist China. The House Freedom Caucus in this respect argued against Biden by stating that not only did you fail to propose an alternative candidate to Dr. Tedros, you are now attempting to hand him more control. We call on you to instead use the 75th World Health Assembly as an opportunity to demand a radical course correction and change in leadership. Under no circumstance should you cede our government's operational control in a public health emergency to an international body. The letter was also packed with a warning by stating that if the WHO governing body accepts these amendments, then the president must fully comply with Article 2, Section 2 of the US Constitution, which openly declares that the president must exercise his powers with the advice and consent of the Senate while making any treaties. Furthermore, 2/3 majority of the senators have to agree for it to move forward. Representative Ralph Norman also criticized Biden's actions by arguing for this administration to sell this country down the river, like he's doing, to deal with somebody who is under the influence of China, who is a person who has not had the first inclination to investigate where the coronavirus came from, to give him more authority? We are going to ring the bells. Thank you all for spending time with me. Don't forget, watch this video right here, and I'll see you next time.